Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. Here, we look closely at the intersections of the postpartum window, the Ayurvedic perspective on health and healing, and the universal mother principles that are the keys to giving and receiving effective care. Hello, I'm Christine Eck. I'll be taking you through interviews with professionals who are making a profound difference in the lives of their clients, conversations with individuals brave enough to share their stories of vulnerability as a way to lift up others, and my own journey through birth, parenting, caregiving, and building a conscious business. We are here to honor the sacred windows, the profound transitions in life that give it all meaning. Welcome to the conversation.
And I will never be the same again.
Welcome to the Sacred Window podcast. I'm so happy to have with me today Christine Revere. Kristin is the founder of Gold Coast Doulas, which is near Grand Rapids, Michigan. This is a beautiful, robust doula collective. It's not only birth and postpartum doula services, but they also support pregnant people who are on bed rest. They offer sleep consultations, lactation consultations, and a whole variety of support for expecting and new families. And Kristin, I'm just really excited to have you here because I recognize, as someone who works with a lot of doulas, how valuable it is to have a community in the work that we do, just as it's so important to have community as a new family. We want to be surrounded by helpers and resources and know that we are not alone. I think sometimes doulas, particularly when they're kind of working on their own, feel isolated, and there's an imbalance there. We also, as a doula, want to know that we've got people who are there to support us. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about maybe like the origin of how this beautiful organization got started, and what is the impact of working with such a big group of doulas and support people?
Ooh, where to begin, Christine? So I would say the start of the idea of Gold Coast Doulas and having an agency was based on my own experience as a mother later in life and wanting to have a dream team of support in my community. And I didn't know what doulas were with my first birth, and hired doulas like immediately when I learned I was pregnant with my son. And so I understood a lot more about options after my second pregnancy and realized that a lot of the holistic health professionals were not necessarily connected. There wasn't a community in West Michigan. And I started teaching childbirth classes after my son was born. And then my students wanted me to be their doula. And so I decided to go to Florida and get trained to become a doula. And as a hobby, maybe take a student or two a year. But I fell in love with the work, and I've always been about supporting women. So the whole mothering the mother aspect, and a lot of the overnight doulas on my team, they love snuggling newborns, but my heart has always been with the mother and my clients, and also with a large agency of 30, depending on the year and navigating maternity leaves, I tend to hover between 25 and 30 subcontracted doulas and educators and lactation consultants, as you mentioned earlier, and sleep consultants. So yeah, I also care for them and want to make sure that they are getting enough rest and self-care and have events to uplift them and continue their education. And so, yeah, it's been very special, but I understand the isolation. I started in a collective, but the collective that the doulas I hired were in and had started did not match who I was as an individual. And so the clients who were attracted to the collective were not hiring me. And I come from a professional background, and, I wear suits. And so it the clients that ended up being attracted to me found me in other ways from referrals. And so I went on my own and started collaborating with other birth workers, and then launched Gold Coast Doulas 10 years ago with a former labor and delivery nurse who was the first hypnobirthing educator in Michigan. And we decided to share a call to make the work be sustainable as birth workers. And we had the ability to not miss a child's birthday, or like have be able to go to a developmental conference and know that our clients were being supported. And so when we launched Gold Coast, we had 6 doulas and a postpartum meal planning service and lactation consultants. And we grew from there. And my original business partner moved away to another state. And so I then had a different business partner, but I've been sole owner for 3 years. And yes, and so we have been listening to our community and picking up on what was lacking, and wanted to be a non-medical, comprehensive support for families from conception through the first year. But with sleep consulting, we actually work up to age 5.
I love that. Yeah, I'm curious that, I mean, this is so beautiful in so many ways, particularly because I think, one thing that really sticks out in your story to me is how, we really can find our authentic calling and create community around that. It's not actually sustainable to assume that we, you know, are the best care provider for every single family. Like, we can show up exactly who we are and create a support network. And the people who are like, they will find us. Like, the people who we need will find us, particularly if we're really resonating with what our calling is. And so what I hear and see from your story is that you knew who you were and you created an incredible group of care providers that are clearly, I mean, you have a lot of people who are in this agency. And I'm curious, you mentioned the ability to say, not have to miss out on an important family event, or to be able to travel for professional development and know that you have colleagues who are there to continue to support. But what I also really love about how you've described some of your business is the ability for people who have a very specific skill set. So, for example, postpartum meal delivery, or like that is their passion, that's what they want to do, or sleep consulting, things like that. You have the ability to really create a connection between such diverse practitioners and help families find them. Because I think a lot of times families are like, oh my gosh, I'm really struggling here, but they don't know where to find people.
Exactly. And so it's all about that connection. And so we know area resources as part of the role of not only a birth doula, but a postpartum doula is to be able to refer. So to an acupuncturist, a pelvic floor physical therapist, a mental health professional. So in all of the cities that I serve, we have trusted professionals that we collaborate with on things like our diaper drive. And I have a a trusted resource from my years of experience in the lakeshore towns and Grand Rapids and northern Michigan that we serve for postpartum. And so, yeah, it's definitely evolved. There were some services that I started out with that our clients had less interest in. So we listened to them and added sleep. And I started out with infant massage, and it didn't really go off as well as I had hoped. So after about a year, we ended up referring elsewhere because there were still practitioners in the area. But we didn't need to do everything. We wanted to listen to our clients and meet their individual needs.
Yeah, well, that's it again too. We have this ability in whatever field we're in, but particularly um, birth and postpartum caring for new families. Like we do not have to do it all. We can do
No.
what the calling is, what our clients are sharing that's important to them right now, and we can also be really plugged in to the folks who are offering specific supports. Um, I think particularly in the area of really mother-centered healing, it's frankly like there's still a lot of people who don't really know anything about that. And so it may not quite yet have the demand that I think in the next 10 years we're going to see it grow a lot. Um, yeah, this is so, along those lines. Um, Kristin, one thing that I did notice on your website was this commitment to really helping families understand and learn skills for caring for their babies, also caring for themselves, that really align with their unique philosophies. And we talk all the time in our program about how we're meeting families where they are. We're not trying to bring in a system of care and put it on top of a family's, healing journey. We're coming in
Yes.
and we're learning about this family and we're noticing where there is need for support and we're creating routines that align with what, the principles of postpartum healing are, and we're designing care that's really catered to them. So I'm curious
Beautiful.
if you would talk a little bit about how you kind of are doing that same thing, in, a little bit more, maybe baby care, but also just like honoring the different opinions and feelings and strong philosophies that people hold in their heart, and they know they want to approach their parenting with those.
Yes. And we, everyone is so different. Their goals for hiring a birth doula or a postpartum doula or, going through a sleep consulting plan are very different. And so our philosophy is judgment-free support and not having a template in caring for them. Everyone's unique. So finding out what their goals are. And I find with day and overnight postpartum support, it might be a different goal each day that our doulas are in a household. And some of our families may work with 6 to 8 different doulas from my team if they want a lot of support, a mix of day and night for extended periods of time. And so one day it might be to take a nap and a shower. Another day it might be some sibling care or to start some meals or snacks. And it can vary. And but knowing what their goals are and if they want a lot of parent education or to understand how to optimize the nursery for safe sleep. And we are able to give them advice, help them create some structure and systems if that is something that they desire. But we also value their cultural traditions, their religious beliefs, and we're not trying to impose any of our own personal beliefs on them. Of course, safety is everything. So we do follow safe sleep guidelines. When we're in the house, if a family practices differently on their own, we're not going to give judgment. We might give them some tips. And then certainly our birth doulas do not attend unassisted births. There has to be a home birth midwife if it's at home, or obviously in the hospital, that is not a concern. But other than that, we have no judgment. It's their philosophy in feeding their baby, in parenting their baby, and certainly in how or where they birth their baby.
Hmm. Yeah, and that non-judgment piece for us is so key because there's, without that upheld, there really
Yeah.
isn't a true place to feel safe and seen if that non-judgment isn't there.
Right. Agreed. Completely. And certainly, doulas may have a passion or specialty, and our agency, they're all business owners of their own, they're subcontractors, so they may take work on their own, or some are nurses and work in a hospital a few days a week, or they have a nanny family part-time, or they have children at home and take work when they want it, turn it away when they don't. We do offer extended family leaves or maternity leave time. And so our contractors have that flexibility and support and freedom that they would not get if they worked on their own.
How are you sharing your gifts and passion for caregiving with others? In a world where education and awareness around the postpartum window is lacking or missing from our modern systems, we have a profound opportunity to shift that paradigm. You may be a few simple offerings away from making a truly impactful difference in the lives of mothers and families in your community. We are here to support your journey in the ways that work best for you. Schedule a conscious care strategy session to meet one on one with me, and let's identify the right next step for you to begin a path of conscious care for new families that fits your life and your needs. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy-session to schedule a time that works best for you. That's www.sacredwindowstudies.com/strategy dash session. Yeah, yeah, I love that. What would you say is one of the most transformational aspects of being in the doula profession
Mm.
when you are in a group practice versus doing it all on your own?
For me, it's meeting the needs in the community. I always felt bad as a solo doula, turning clients away. I knew my limitations and what my family needed from me. I was afraid of clients going at once. I had strong backups, but now we are able to meet most of the needs. Again, I had mentioned we might have a team of doulas supporting the client, or it might be an individual doula with backup, or some families have one doula, but if she's sick or has an emergency, we can often offer a backup. They may not want that. And so making the work sustainable is key to me. The burnout is huge in caregiving professions in general, but even as, a doula for over 12 years, that burnout rate has not changed. Even with technology and abilities to do consultations on Zoom like this or a phone call versus traveling an hour to meet with a client like I did when I started, there's still a high burnout rate. It's like 3 to 5 years is the average length of a doula's career. And I have doulas on my team that have been with me 8 years. And so I'm very thankful to be able to give them space if they have a need to step away, and then invite them back when it's good for them.
Mm, I love that model. I love that. I'm curious with, all of, your agency is able to really see and take on the care of a lot of families with, the large number of caregivers that you have. I'm curious if you have seen trends shift over time of what the main needs are that families are struggling with, because I think it's so interesting how even in, 10 years, there can be a real shift in how people are experiencing the postpartum window or, different things. So, yeah, what are the main challenges that your clients are having right now?
I feel like with technology and needing to be ever connected, it's hard to take a full maternity leave. even when, as I still practice as a birth doula in the hospital, my clients are answering work emails, and it is hard to fully embrace that recovery time and that family time when we're so tied to technology. And so it is nice that partners might be able to work remotely and be in the home, but they also have the need to be productive and be in meetings. So if the baby's crying, there is a need for postpartum doulas. And when I started the agency, I spent a lot of time in the community meeting with other professionals and pediatricians and mental health professionals and letting them know what a doula is, especially a postpartum doula. And now I feel like the public knows, especially the birth doula role, and more so every day, the postpartum doula role. So it is not something that I need to spend time on educating, but there is that perception that postpartum support is only for a celebrity or the elite, or it's a luxury and we shouldn't have to ask for help. So unless there's a benefit that covers the service, people often feel like, well, I shouldn't have to have help in my home and I should be Wonder Woman and do it all and like fit back in my old jeans, get back to work, be an amazing mom without any help. And that's not how it's been over time in traditional cultures. That's not how it is now in Europe and other areas. And so, by our culture in the United States, and oftentimes we're not living near family. And so it's challenging to have that support, and we're isolated other than technology and those moms groups or texting friends. But I feel like there's more isolation since the pandemic hit, even with the ability to be connected on social media or through our phones. Do you see that as well?
I do see that. I do see that. And I see that even for myself, when I'm working remotely, it is so easy to cross the line between this is my work time and this is my family time.
Right.
So it is, I think, a characteristic of the time we live in to
Yes.
really discern how we can create boundaries, but particularly when we're in the postpartum window. One thing that is helpful from the Ayurvedic perspective to understand is that after birth, it's a time of high Vata dosha. This is a lot of extra air and ether element in our bodies
Yeah.
and our minds, and one thing that can happen when we have that excess Vata dosha is feelings of restlessness, of
Mm.
some anxiety, or like we can't really relax and just settle. And so the
Right.
quickest thing that I find myself that I want to do if I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do with myself, I may grab my phone, or I may grab my computer or something. And so really helping to settle in all the other ways to create a grounded environment and help gentle reminders. Like even I think those are great conversations to have before the baby arrives is, how do you envision really giving yourself some screen-free time during the
Right.
postpartum window? Could that be beneficial for you? Would you enjoy having time to really bond and like experience some tech-free time? And most people, I think, would be like, yeah, I would really like that. And talking about it beforehand
Right.
has a nicer impact than, it's not really the time, I think, to kind of train and educate during that window a little bit, a little bit,
No,
but it's much better beforehand.
absolutely. And friends and family will be checking in. You may have meals getting dropped off. So again, that phone and needing to respond does feel like an obligation when really the focus should be rest and recovery and bonding with baby. Those are like the principles in those first 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm
Yeah.
curious if you have a story of a client that you have worked with who did receive some postpartum support and what that impact might have been, what that looked like, and how you noticed a real a real benefit for them in receiving that postpartum care.
So it's not only a benefit to my client, but also their partners and their entire family. So I can think of a story of a client in particular who wanted to focus her time on her other small children and have the doula focus, whether it was myself or other doulas who were in their house on caring for the baby, but then also wanted separate time to focus on baby without the distractions of the other child. So having activities and getting snacks for the other small children had been very helpful to her. So she didn't feel like she was having to meet the needs of all of her family at the same time, and she could bond. And then the other children weren't feeling like they were being neglected. Sometimes there's that fear of being replaced by the new baby and that mom doesn't love me as much. And so to give everyone individual attention during that special time and even spend time with a partner. I've had families want to have a dinner in the home together with a doula in the house caring for baby to focus on their relationship and their connection as a couple. So it's not always a focus on other children and how a doula can manage that, but it's also the connection that's so important to the couple.
I love that. And it's also, we talk a lot about how it's not only the type of food or the herbal preparations or the technique of body work that we're giving that's Ayurvedic. It's
Yes,
whatever is helping to bring the person into a greater state of balance. And so that might mean taking the older children to give them one-on-one attention so that that parent has peace in their heart that their older ones are okay, and that enables them to fully relax. It might be giving them that one-on-one time with their partner without needing to worry about anything else. It's just our presence is oftentimes the most powerful medicine.
so true. Absolutely, Christine.
Oh, well, Kristen, this has been so beautiful. I have not yet had someone on our podcast who has founded an agency like yours, and I'm so impressed and just so excited to share this model. Because you said it a little earlier, there is such a high burnout rate for the caregiving profession. Of course, not just doulas, but caregivers
Right.
of all kinds, even parents. We very quickly can become burnt out as parents. So thinking
Yes.
very carefully about how can we structure our work, our lives, our practices in ways that we are supported so that we can continue to do this work that we're called to, that we love, that we feel so fulfilled by. So thank you for doing what you're doing. And yeah, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners and what might you have for them to follow up with you and learn more about your practice?
Sure. So my tip for your listeners is, to trust your instincts. And that could be as a holistic health professional, birth worker, mother, is, if you feel like you need more support in an agency or want to hire a dream team of experts, there's no judgment and you have so many options. And I found that I didn't want to do the work alone. and created community in my agency. But we are on all of the social media channels at Gold Coast Doulas. And so that would be Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. And I can also be found on my podcast, Ask the Doulas, that I recently had you guest on. So, and then I have a book, Supported Your Guide to Birth and Baby, that is available in audio format and paperback, hardcover, and also Kindle version. So, and that is focused not only on birth preparation, but also postnatal recovery.
Amazing. Kristin, thank you so much for sharing your perspectives, your stories. It's wonderful to meet you and have you here. And I hope that we get to do this again. Thank
I
you.
would love that. Thank you for having me on. I loved our conversation, Christine.
Shanti, Shanti.
The Center for Sacred Window Studies has been training postpartum care providers, professionals who work with new families, and individuals passionate about postpartum care since 2018. We regularly host live free events alongside our online and in-person training and certification programs. Hop on our newsletter list to get direct access to all of our events and community support gatherings. Our mission is not only in training conscious postpartum care providers, but in fostering a robust, informed, and thriving community of postpartum professionals. Once you step inside, you're family forever. Visit www.sacredwindowstudies.com to add your email to our newsletter list. You can support our work by subscribing to the Sacred Window podcast and sharing with someone you know who would love it. Thanks for being here and participating in the culture-wide shift that recognizes the need for and the importance of conscious postpartum care.